Hey everybody, welcome to Kent with Bent number 140, Snake Murderer. I'm here, of course, with Bent Hovind.
Hi,
Bent,
everybody.
how you doing?
I'm doing great.
All right. Hey, what are you drinking today?
That is a great question. I have this glass of water and nothing else. Oh, wait, yes, there is something else. Inside this awesome Tiki mug, yes, that is a Klingon, by the way. I have the greatest beverage ever invented. Mountain Dew Baja Blast.
I'm gonna move that a little bit over to your right, I think. There you go. Yeah, there we go.
Happy 20th
I
Baja anniversary, everybody.
have a Baja Blast that is hard, and I am drinking it out of this wonderful Mugato glass, which I forgot to put my cocktail umbrella
That's
in.
pretty
Give
cool.
me a second. There it is. All right. So, I hope everyone is having a great night. We are here to do some more Kent with Bent, but today it's a little bit more Star Trek themed than normal, as you might be able to tell. I'm sitting here in this wonderful bridge. Bent is just, in his room, like
You're at
normal.
home, yeah, on Earth, like a lame-o.
I know. We have a few things to read before we get into this. DM Google Debunker win for $2 says Rip Snick. Indeed, Rip Snick. Let's see. Bent Hovind, no relation, who's been a member for 48 months. What a weirdo. Says that poor snake with a Godzilla, and that in fact is a drink trigger, so we will take a drink. Thank you very much, Bent. And then Fearmonger, Master of Science, who's at the Tetrapod level and has been a member for 20 months, says, had my first dream in Klingon, help me with an AIG as a bag of dicks emoji. It's too late. Now that's it. Klingon is now your first language. Deal with it. All right. So, for those of you who might be new, Kent with Bent is a show where myself, Bent, and, the audience, we take a look at the claims and videos and whatnot of one Kent Hovind. That guy. I don't know which way is which. Other way. There you go. So, Kent over there is a young Earth creationist who has some of the dumbest takes, even most other young Earth creationists not really on board. So, yeah. Now, we have a drinking game, as you can see. We're keeping track of drinks. We have a drink total. It's 2. So, we will take a drink anytime Kent Hovind says something that's so dumb, we just kind of have to cool our brains down. We'll also take a drink anytime Kent Hovind says something that's actually factually accurate, which is very uncommon, but it does happen from time to time. We'll take a drink if Kent Hovind tells a joke that doesn't land, or tells a story that we're pretty sure didn't happen. So, for instance, if Kent Hovind wants to talk about the time that he and some museum docent had a discussion with his daughter, and his daughter converted that museum docent directly to young Earth creationism, and then that guy went to Kent's church. Sorry. Later on that week. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a thing that didn't happen, so we will take a drink for that. Also, if Kent Hovind mentions that, political party that was really big in Germany in like the 1930s and the 40s, we'll take a drink for that. If Kent Hovind confuses what we know about any taxon with what we can know just from the Lucy specimen. So, for instance, if he says, oh, we don't know what Australopithecus' feet look like because Lucy wasn't found with foot bones, yeah, that's called an ad hominid. We get one of those, but we take a drink. If Kent cites a source and we check the source and we find out that the source not only, fails to support him, which they all do, but if it contradicts him actively, we take a drink for Trojan source. We will also take a drink if anyone here super chats anything to the effect that answers in Genesis are a bag of dicks. You will have to be a little bit tricky with that because YouTube will censor it if you just put it there. So, you may have to switch languages, you might have to put it in code, you might have to put it in, like, different characters. You can be creative. It's fine. I trust you. You guys are great. You have found many ways to do this in the past. We'll also take a drink for any gifted memberships, and I noticed that we have Jillian Wren is still not a member again. So, gotta get our server mom back, everybody. Let's see. We will also take a drink for anyone who super chats or milestone membership chats with their member emojis of Ghidorah, Godzilla, or Mothra. And let's see. We will also take a drink if I screw up the production of this show, because I'm not only a host, I'm also the producer, which is kind of a lot. So, and have I forgotten any that you can remember there, Bent?
Yeah, if we make predictions, did you mention that?
Predictions, yes. If we make a prediction and it comes true, then about what Kent's going to say. Then we will take a drink for that. And also, if Mothra, Godzilla, or King Ghidorah come by audibly, we will take a drink for them. And I think that is actually all of them.
Yeah.
All right. So, Bent, are you... All right, I'm not going to ask if you're ready, because obviously no one is ever ready for more Kent. Are you likely to be able to become more ready in the next minute or so?
No, first I want to show people my shirt.
Oh, yes. Let's do a fit check. I am, of course, wearing this Starfleet uniform. Gotta lean back. There you go. Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra.
It's faded, but it's from September of 1991.
It's very
which was when the concert was played. I mean, the episode aired.
Bits of St. Blah Blah Rage gifted one membership, and then Savage Pinnipedisaurus just gifted 5 more. Sorry, I can count. I know how this works. So let's take 6 drinks before we get into this. Okay. All right. Oh, and we have Heather Evolution of Forkspoon for $2 who says AIG is a bucket of gooey ducks, because this isn't a Pokemon. Thank you very much. We'll take a drink for that. Those things do look surprisingly like penises. It's rather disconcerting. I did once buy one at AH Mart in Seattle, where they harvest them, because Seattle area is where they're from, so they had like live, fresh, harvested that day gooey duck.
How was it?
It was actually really good. I mean, I put it in stir fry, and there's a lot of meat, right? Because what you're mostly eating is the foot, which is the part that kind of looks like the penis. But it's just like solid meat right there. Just huge bit of meat. I don't know. Anyway, Kent, let's go. Oh, by the way, Kent was just talking about how skeptics aren't skeptical of are skeptical of creation, but he says they're not skeptical of evolution. The thing is, the skeptics are skeptical of evolution. It's just that evolution actually has the evidence to meet the burden of evidence that most skeptics have, which means most skeptics then go on to accept evolution. So, let's see. Sir Derpy Mister says, does it taste like most other clams? Yes. If you like clams, you'll like gooey duck. If you don't like clams, you will not like gooey duck. And if you're trying to keep kosher, don't eat gooey duck. I don't know what the rule is for halal. I think it's okay. Olivia Williams for $2.79 Beaverbuck says, what does a dinosaur need with a starship? Well, I mean, how else am I going to get to other planets? And I mean, look at this bridge. Come on, I could go anywhere on this ship. There it is. Very fancy. It's good. Yeah. Got the little red bars that go around, like the TOS Enterprise. It's very nice. I definitely didn't spend like the last 3 weeks working on this bridge or anything. All right, here we go.
You're biased.
I will admit I am biased, but the thing is, I don't think I'm biased the way Ken thinks I am, because I've said many times I think my life would be easier and certainly like less philosophically troubling if I just accepted young Earth creationism and like Kent's theology, right? Like there would be very little complication. I wouldn't have to think about moral philosophy. I wouldn't have to think about, like, mortality. I wouldn't have to think about, whether or not there's any kind of, like, an easy, free way to just derive meaning from the world. It would be very, very easy. I was not unhappy as a young Earth creationist. The reason I stopped being a young Earth creationist has nothing to do with me not wanting to be one. I was very much opposed to the idea of stopping being a young Earth creationist.
You and me both, man.
So, yeah.
There's a great article here in USA Today from February 3rd of the year 2000. Let's just read this here, because we got to. Those that are taking this course want to get all the details. Here's the details on proving that this thing was proven not true. Okay, from the remote, however you pronounce that province in China, an unusual dinosaur found.
I believe it's Liaoning. From the remote, yeah, it's Liaoning. Which, look, I'm not saying that I'm saying that completely correctly. But for an English speaker, I'm getting it kind of close, which is really all I'm going for. It's like when people are like, oh, hey, you mispronounced Lagerstätte. Like, yeah, I don't know much German, so that's probably about as good as I'm ever going to get is Lagerstätte.
Fossil has made a mysterious journey from the hands of Chinese smugglers.
So, by the way, this is something he started to bring up last time, and this is Archaeoraptor. So for those of you who don't know the story, Archaeoraptor was a composite fossil that was made of... I don't remember what the bottom half was, but the top half of the fossil was Microraptor. And basically it was glued together, probably in China, and then sold and made its way to the United States, where basically every paleontologist who looked at it was like, no, this is a composite. You cannot name this as a new creature. You could separate it and then look at both sides individually, because those are both real fossils of actual dinosaurs. But the guy who bought it was like, no, I'm going to publish it in National Geographic under the name Archaeoraptor. And so the National Geographic shopped that around to the paleontologists they were in contact with, and every single one of them was like, no, don't do that. This is a really bad idea. Don't publish on this. And they were like, you know what? We're going to do it anyway. And so, yeah. Let's see. For $5, Savage Pinnipetasaurus Cobra says, AIG is a bag of the AIG is a bag of the bycatch when Rocky Mountain oysters are harvested. Jeez. Okay. Awesome. Here we go.
To the polished halls of the National Geographic Society in Washington. And like some, cursed from a mummy's tomb, the Archaeoraptor, which is what they named it, supposed...
Oh, let's see. I think Jas or Yasmir, I'm not really sure, let me know, who's been a member for 18 months, is at the touchball level, says, why dino voice come from people shape? Oh, this is my very fancy human suit, on which I have placed a Starfleet uniform tunic from like the 2260s or something. When is that period of those old scientists, TOS? I don't remember off the top of my head.
2280s, I think.
2280s? Okay.
I think.
Yeah, but that's why, because they don't make these in dinosaur sizes. I would have to have it custom made, and I'm cheap. Whereas this is like, I don't know, like 20 on Amazon or something.
Supposedly a bird-like creature with the tail of a meat-eating dinosaur has brought to those who would possess it what may be remembered as modern paleontology's greatest embarrassment. It now appears after...
What about this is modern paleontology's biggest embarrassment? Because here's the thing. Every single paleontologist who looked at this was like, nah, this ain't it. Nope. What more could paleontologists have possibly done other than what they did? Because I don't know. Right? Like, they all said, no, this is fake. This is a composite. All of them. This is National Geographic's folly, I guess. Sure, maybe it's National Geographic's biggest mistake. But literally no paleontologist signed off on this.
For several months of suspicion and consternation that this true missing link in the complex chain between dinosaurs and birds somehow sprouted its remarkable tail not 120 million years ago, but only a short time before being smuggled out of China. Whether a deliberate fake or an honest mistake, it is the tale of a tale that has children believing in feathered dinosaurs that never existed.
Well, I mean, on the part of the person who glued the fossil together, it's not quite, I guess it's a hoax, I guess. It was more like a scam, because, you know, they probably did this for money. On the part of the guy who bought it and wanted to publish it, I think it's reasonable to say it was an honest mistake, right? That guy was probably looking to, you know, become famous, and he probably thought he had a real full specimen of a dinosaur. But on the part of every paleontologist involved, it wasn't even a mistake. It was an immediate identification correctly of a composite fossil.
Prominent scientists calling each other names and two respected science publications under assault.
Let's see. Crypto457 says, wasn't the tail from Microraptor? I thought it was the top half of the body. I could be wrong about that. Double check me on that, right? Because it's been a while since I looked into the Archaeoraptor thing. Because ultimately, Archaeoraptor isn't actually important. It was just a nothing. National Geographic did a stupid thing, and then literally everyone moved on in the field. Because no one cared. Because everyone who was consulted in the field said, nah, not our thing. That's not it.
Yeah, but you were right. It's the 2260s.
2260s? Awesome. Okay.
Plot thickens. Scientists in China have told USA Today that they have discovered yet another faked tail. This one added by an entrepreneurial Chinese farmer to a flying pterodactyl.
What? That is not a story I'm familiar with. Did that just not get published or anything? Like a dinosaur tail added onto a pterosaur? If you've heard of that story, let me know in the comments, and let me know if like there's a thing I should look up, because I am unaware of anyone trying to publish a composite dinosaur, pterosaur fossil anywhere. But I mean, it's certainly possible. It's not like the people who are like, non-paleontologists who are gluing fossils together to sell them for money in rural China would like not do that. I suspect they probably would, because I don't think they would know any better, because again, they're just people from around the area who aren't paleontologists who are just trying to get money.
That one appears to have fooled another group of relatives, another group of scientists, as well as the editors of the British journal Nature.
That seems super unlikely.
Storrs Olson, curator of birds at the Smithsonian's Institute, National Museum of Natural History, turned the spotlight on the whole mess. Those involved with the scientific gaffe agree that Olson tried to warn officials at National Geographic in a letter sent November 1st that the organization was headed for embarrassment if it endorsed the fossil. Both of the faked fossils were intended to support the theory that birds evolved from dinosaurs.
Which doesn't need any extra support, by the way. It's already extremely conclusive. It's conclusive in the same way that humans evolved from apes is conclusive, or that all proboscideans share a common ancestor is conclusive. I mean, it's extremely conclusive.
Now Olson, who is an outspoken opponent of the theory, is taking advantage of this moment to renew an old debate on the origin of birds.
It's No Relation Halstead says, "Hi, AF, playing Elden Ring, watching Dapper. Keep up the, I think you meant good work, with of course, Godzilla, so we will take a drink for the Godzilla." Thank you very much, Kent No Relation Halstead. Are you in the DLC? Let me know. I actually haven't started the DLC yet. I was working on getting a new character that ready to do the DLC, because all my other characters were on new game plus 3 or 4 or something, and I wanted to go in at no new game, just just flat brand new file. But then I got distracted by playing too much Carrion, because that was on a super deep sale for the Steam Summer Sale. So I spent the $5 to get myself Carrion, and being a horrible tentacle monster trying to break its way out of a scientific research facility while destroying a whole bunch of people on the way was a lot of fun. So that took up pretty much most of my gaming time. And then also, I wanted to get in one last playthrough of Satisfactory Early Access before 1.0 comes out. So I've just been all over the place with gaming.
The popular view, thanks most recently to the fictitious Jurassic Park, is that birds evolved from dinosaurs.
No, the Jurassic Park... Look, Jurassic Park might have had some role in popularizing the idea, getting it into the public consciousness, but it had absolutely no role in terms of the science, right? Scientists were already leaning that way when Jurassic Park was being written way back in the late 80s, I think. And then by the time it came out in 1993, the consensus was in. Birds were dinosaurs. And that consensus has only strengthened since then. So Jurassic Park certainly had no effect on, academics in terms of acceptance of that hypothesis. But maybe it did on the public. I don't know. I haven't polled them.
National Geographic and Nature have co-published magazine articles and scientific papers supporting the view. Museums, including the American Museum of Natural History in New York, also promote exhibits of the dinosaur origin of birds. But Olson and a group of academic ornithologists, a person who studies birds, have been arguing, often bitterly for years, that birds evolved independently of dinosaurs. They believe that dinosaurs and birds had a common ancestor that lived in trees, and that dinosaurs were, after all, cold-blooded. Like the Chinese dino bird, the Archaeopteryx is fake, too.
No, it's not. Okay, so that's extremely dumb. We're going to take a drink, even though this isn't actually Ken saying this. This is just him quoting from some USA Today post, which is already getting many things wrong. Oh, there goes my umbrella onto the floor. I'm not putting that back in the drink. Oops. I'll get another one at the break. It's fine. Okay, so Archaeopteryx. The idea that it was a fake is largely the result of Fred Hoyle and his buddy, something with Ramasing. I don't remember his first name. Sorry, with Ramasing guy. If anyone knows it, tag me and let me know, because I can't remember. But basically, they went to the, I think the London Specimen, and their idea was that this was actually a flying reptile of some kind, which presumably would have to mean pterosaur, which is absolutely not, right? It doesn't have any of the characteristics of a pterosaur, and it has all the characteristics of a dinosaur. So they're already wrong right off the bat. Also, Rail Gatubello for $5 says Jurassic Park's raptors didn't even look like birds. They only added feathered dinosaurs in the recent movies because that became common knowledge among lay people. Correct. Yeah. I like to say that Jurassic Park franchise is bringing people in the 2020s the cutting edge of paleontology from the 1980s, which wasn't that bad back in 1993 when the cutting edge paleontology of the 80s was still almost cutting edge. But, like, yeah, the fact that they didn't update anything about that until the most recent movie, which I haven't even seen, it's a bit annoying. Yeah, I don't know. Hey, guys, should I see Jurassic World Dominion? Is that what the newest one is called? Yeah, it's Fallen Kingdom, then Dominion, I think. I don't know. Let me know. Okay, so Fred Hoyle and his buddy Wick Ramasinghe decided that, well, if this is a fake fossil, right? How do we think it was fake? Because there's obvious feather impressions. Well, they decided that they thought that what had happened was that someone had laid down a little layer of cement on top of the limestone slab that Archaeopteryx was preserved on, and then before it dried, they had pushed in chicken feathers in order to create the impression of a feathered dinosaur. Grugavaldi Gurnison for $5 says, "Watch Godzilla X Kong finally. I'm mad they keep making my 8 bro a jobber." Look, I had a lot of fun with that movie, but I can see why some people might prefer a stronger, more dominant Kong. I get it. Of course, I'm always rooting for Godzilla in any monster fight in which he's in. Although, I have to say, I did like Scylla, and I did think that the treatment of Scylla in that movie was a little... I think Scylla deserved a longer fight scene at the very least, especially given how brutally she was killed, but whatever. Anyway, so, yeah, they went and they got some samples from the London specimen, if I remember correctly. It could have been the Berlin, but it's immaterial either way. And they tested it. And their tests were largely inconclusive. And there were a number of problems that didn't show up in their paper, but that subsequent people pointed out. One of which is that the feathers on the slab that contains the bones are directly matched by mirroring impressions on the counter slab. So when you crack open a bit of limestone like this from the Solnhofen limestone, right, you have this chunk, and then you cut it in the middle, and it kind of separates along a cleavage plane. And so one side usually comes away with the bones, and the other side comes away without the bones, but with an impression left from where they were, right? The part with the bones is usually called the slab. The other side is the counter slab. Well, when you have things like feather impressions that are apparent as voids in the stone, the counter slab is going to have the other side of those voids, right? Which means that you should be able to take a look at the slab and then look at the mirrored position on the counter slab and see the exact same feather. But if you were trying to fake that with just a bunch of cement and pushing feathers in by hand, there's absolutely no way you could be so exact as to get that right. So that right there just blows the whole idea of it being a hoax out of the water. But further, you can notice if there's cement on limestone, because contrary to what I've been told by, Kent's third ex-wife, Cindy Lincoln, cement and limestone aren't the same thing. Quicklime is derived from limestone, but it's not actually limestone. And so you could tell if there's a discontinuity between the limestone of the matrix and the cement, and there just isn't. Further, it would mean that the slab and the counter slab would no longer fit together if you added cement to either side, because then there would be extra material on top of the actual natural cleavage plane. So all of this taken together means that Fred Hoyle and Wick Ramasinghe were absolutely wrong about everything they said about Archaeopteryx. And they are the only people to have ever, to my knowledge, published a study even questioning the authenticity of Archaeopteryx as a feathered dinosaur. And remember, their explanation was that it was feathers that were baked on top of an already flying reptile skeleton. Which again, other than a pterosaur, I don't know what they could be talking about. Which is an extremely dumb take. Let's just say that. There's absolutely no way Archaeopteryx is a pterosaur of all things. So whoever's writing this USA Today article, it was Tim something or other. This guy is clearly just one of the bandits, right? That's the Birds Are Not Dinosaurs group that Alan Fiducia is like the head in charge of, right? That's his group of pseudoscientists. And I say pseudoscientists because their last viable argument was probably that filamentous simple protofeather impressions were actually collagen fibers. And we now know that that's not true because we found melanocytes and melanosomes preserved in those structures. And collagen does not have melanosomes because it's not made of cells, so they can't produce melanosomes. So yeah. Savage Pinnipedisaurus Cobra for $5 says, much like Dr. Malcolm, Kent is always looking for a future ex-Mrs. Hovind. Correct. Yeah, I actually do wonder, like, does Kent Hovind think that it's going to last with his current wife? I don't know. It's a weird thing, because Kent Hovind has gone on record before, decades ago, as being strongly anti-divorce. And then suddenly it's like, hey man, what wife are you on right now? Is it number 4? Is it? I think it's number 4. Yeah.
The following excerpt is taken from the website creationscience.com.
Oh, goody.
Which is Walt Brown's website. Tremendous material, by the way.
What does it mean, tremendous material? Does it just mean there's a lot of it? It's a big information? I would say that maybe Kent was doing a Trump impression, but this was before Trump became, like president, or it was even announced that he was going to run, like, by decades. I don't think Trump was that popular in, like, the 1990s, was he? I mean, it's turning for Godzilla. Turning for Godzilla twice. Alright, here we go.
Honest disagreement over whether Archaeopteryx was not a forgery was possible until 1986, when a definitive test was performed. An X-ray resonance spectrograph of the British Museum fossil showed the material containing the feather impressions differed slightly from the rest of the fossil slab.
That's not true. And here's the thing. Creationists have a history of presenting fake scans of things. Famously, now I can't say whether or not Walt Brown did this, but Carl Bov famously likes to present what he calls, like, CAT scans of his fossils that are just height maps of the surface of the fossil. Oh, looking for Godzilla again. And they don't tell you anything. So yeah, Archaeopteryx is absolutely not a fake. There is literally no evidence of it being faked, and it would be virtually impossible to fake that fossil as it exists. Let's see, roasted in a cereal is soup. Keller for $1.99 says, endogenous retroviruses are cool. They are cool unless they get reactivated as viruses, because then they can go on to create actual disease in the host organism, which is pretty wild, and also really goes against the idea that they're just designed elements that you sometimes get from some young Earth creationists. Like, oh no, God just put those in there in the beginning. Like, I'm sorry, he put a virus inside me that can just wake up anytime if, the part of my genome that it's in happens to just be translated. Okay, cool. Oh my goodness. Godzilla's trying to kill me here.
Differed significantly from the rest of the slab. In other words, it was made of a paste.
That's impossible, as we went over for many reasons.
Someone apparently had taken the rock, ground up some of it to powder, made a paste out of it, and then put feather impressions in it.
Well, that would be an interesting claim, but there's a problem with that. If you grind up limestone, make a paste out of it, and then put a feather impression in it, it'll just return to a powdered state. You need to do something to the limestone and actually get it to set as a hard thing like cement. That's why quicklime isn't the same thing as limestone. Quicklime is what happens when you heat limestone up to a very high level. It's actually one of the reasons why the concrete industry is a major source of carbon dioxide, is because of the heat that they have to produce, mostly via burning fossil fuels, in order to take limestone and turn it into quicklime. Then when you have a quicklime paste, you can mix that with water and it will set into a basic cement. So, yeah, you can't do that. And then again, if there's a cement, it won't be limestone, and so it will be very obviously different, which it wasn't. That was just what Fred Hoyle claimed, but no one has ever been able to reproduce his results, and as a result, he was denied further access for destructive testing to the specimen, because of course he was. No one's going to let him continue to destroy a priceless specimen to further the claims that have already been extremely disproven.
Some people are really desperate to believe this theory.
No, some people are really desperate to disprove it, especially Fred Hoyle. I don't know why Fred Hoyle was such an anti-evolution guy, especially since he was an outspoken atheist, and usually most atheists are kind of on board with evolution, but hey, Fred Hoyle was a weird guy.
And so they will accept it. But guess what? Textbooks are still teaching today. Dinosaurs are the descendants of birds.
No, it's the other way around. Kent did this in our debate too.
Yeah, he did.
Look, the idea of like sets within sets, right? Like here's a small set inside of a bigger set. That's something that most people can figure out by the time they're about like 2. But for some reason, creationists, when it comes to dinosaurs and birds, as well as humans and apes, have a lot of trouble with this. And I don't know. I'm assuming that they don't have the cognitive functioning of a 2-year-old, and that they're in fact more advanced than that because they can do things like string together whole sentences. But I don't. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know. Goopdo3 et al. For $2 says, Dapper Tokyo, Godzilla's trying to kill me here. Yeah, with the little handshake emoji. Yeah, no, it's true. Although, hey, Godzilla has attacked other cities in various movies. He's attacked New York. He's attacked San Diego. He's attacked Honolulu. He's attacked Kyoto. He's also attacked some like surrounding areas in Tokyo. He gets around.
Now, it takes a while to get textbooks accurate, I understand that. But somebody in the different towns, if we're supposed to be the salt of the earth, okay, salt preserves. Who's going to preserve? I mean, tomorrow morning, kids in a scam...
You're not going to finish that analogy there, Kent? Okay.
He's done with that thought.
Yeah, that wasn't even quite a whole thought, but you know what? It's time to move on.
County, Florida, are going to be taught this.
Wait, Jillian Wren got the membership? Oh, did I miss that? Oh my goodness, congratulations, Jillian Wren. I'm sorry that I missed that.
Yeah, I think that was on one of the 5 gift subs.
Well, congratulations.
Well, let's do something about it, okay? Let's fix it. There are several ways to fix the problem. We'll get into that later in this course, but one way is just simply educate all the students. Grassroots.
Okay.
That is unstoppable, but it takes a long time to accomplish that.
Yeah, also, I don't think that the parents of all the kids are going to be happy that, like, Kent's church group is going around trying to, like, propagandize all the public school students. Like, that seems weird and gross and, just generally not okay. But let's see. Let me update the counter, and then we get a couple of super chats to read. Also, this mug is kind of heavy, and every time I move it, I'm like, what if I drop it and it shatters, and I feel really bad? But anyway, Savage Pinnipetasaurus for Cobra for $5 says, set theory. The set of all taxes encloses the set of taxes that Kent owes. That's true. This is accurate. Roasting a Cerealist Soup Keller for $4.99 says, 2-year-olds can do a lot of things Yex and Terrence Howard can't. Oh, yeah. I watched that follow-up thing that he did with, I don't even know who that other guy was, but like Joe Rogan had some other guy who's himself a bit of a nut, just not as much as Terrence Howard. And he was like, no, this 1 times 1 thing, that was just a metaphor. But then for most of the rest of the podcast, he's acting like it's literally true, and he only seems to have said it was a metaphor in order to cover his ass, because everyone has been telling him, hey, Terrence, that's really stupid. It's not too. It was a metaphor. No, Terrence, it was not. It was never a metaphor. You're not even treating it like a metaphor now. It's just such a weird podcast. So actually, I think it's like the second time in my entire life I've ever sat and watched an entire episode of the Joe Rogan Experience. I'm not a big Joe Rogan guy. For one thing, most of the people he has on are absolutely insane. He used to have on like some normal people to, counter that. But since I guess conspiracy theorists get all the money and all the clicks, so he's just gone full bore into that. Heather Evolution of Forkscoon for $2 says, isn't that how we got Kitzmiller v. Dover? So I think what Kent is talking about is a grassroots movement to miseducate children rather than an official school board act. And so I don't know if he would be saying, hey, put Young Earth Creationist books in like libraries, or if he's just saying like, hey, teach the kids after school about creation. But it is the case that the Kitzmiller v. Dover thing started over the idea of whether or not the school should be able to hold creationist books, like the Panda's Thumb, in the library. which is not the same thing as putting it in the classroom. So, the answer to that is maybe. Very resounding maybe.
The other way is to educate all the teachers. Just get all the teachers where they don't believe in this theory.
How would that even work? Hey, Mr. So-and-so, the biology teacher, you know how there's that theory that's the unifying theory in all of biology and that's been supported for 150 plus years, full of thousands of papers and actual literal physically existing mountains, including one in Texas, full of evidence? What if? No. Okay, go teach the kids. Yeah, that's never going to work, kids.
The third and more complicated and much slower way, and probably least likely to succeed way, is to pass laws, try to attack the Capitol.
I mean, normally I would have said, yeah, this is not going to work. But, I think now it might. You know what, creationists? I think you have your golden opportunity in, like, the next 10 years or so. Because, I don't think the current Supreme Court is going to really care that much about, science. So, hey. It might be time for you to try again, which feels weird to say.
And say, look, get this stuff out of the books. And I think we should work on all three fronts on that one. But telling kids that dinosaurs turned to birds,
which is a weird way to phrase it, but okay,
is ridiculous. Look, in case you don't know, you don't just put a few feathers on a dinosaur, say, let's go, man, try it, it won't hurt too bad. Okay? It's not quite that simple.
Let's take a drink, and then we'll talk about this picture. Oh. Now, Ben, I know you're not an expert on dinosaurs.
This appears to me to be a blatant intentional misunderstanding.
Yes. So the dinosaurs the dinosaur group to which birds belong is called Theropoda. It is the theropods. And do you know, could you recognize a theropod if you saw one? Like, could you name a few, maybe?
I don't know if I could actually name very many, if any, okay. But I might be able to recognize them. I imagine they are smaller and have feathers and would appear almost bird-like to me.
Yeah, in fact, they have 2 legs, not 4. They're not sauropods, which is what this is. Which way to point? That is. They're also, generally smaller. Some examples include Tyrannosaurus rex, Allosaurus fragilis, Ceratosaurus nasicornis, Microraptor gui, Archaeopteryx lithographica, Carnotaurus sastri. You've probably heard of a few of those. In fact, I would hazard to say you've probably heard of almost all of them, if not all of them.
I don't think I've heard of all of them, but most of them, yeah.
Dinosaurs are very, very different from birds.
In what way, Kent? What is something that all dinosaurs have that birds don't have? Because that's what that ultimately means, right? What is a feature that's important to dinosaurs that they have that birds don't have? And I know he doesn't know. Do you know how I know he doesn't know, Bent?
Oh, I know. I've heard it in music that I've written.
Yeah, I asked him. I presented him what a dinosaur is, what a bird is, and why the category of bird is a subcategory of dinosaur. And he admitted to me on air, on a debate, in a video you can find twice on my channel, one with bad audio and once with better audio, that he does not know what a dinosaur is in the first place. So he is physically incapable of differentiating between dinosaur and not a dinosaur in any reliable way. Which means anytime he tells you that birds are different from dinosaurs, he is intentionally lying to you because he doesn't know how to make the distinction, right? Like if I told you, oh, hey, racquetball is fundamentally different from a sport, but I can't tell you what a sport is, the only interpretation left is that I'm just lying to you. I don't even know what I'm talking about here. We got a couple things to read. Let's see. Roasting a cereal is soup color for $4.99 says, sorry, off topic, but I can't believe Spirit Halloween doesn't have any Kent Hovind merch. That would be interesting. Although I think at this point it's just a Hawaiian shirt because that's all he ever wears anymore. He's done with the whole suit and the cool ties. Because look, credit where it's due. Kent Hovind's old tie collection, pretty cool. I like his ties. Also, for $10, Kent No Relation Halstead says, if you can prove the flood happened, it means Christianity is demonstrably real. Well, not necessarily Christianity, but some religion at least that accepts like the basic aspects of Abrahamic religion, which means that their morals are objectively correct, which means you can make it law. Actually, I know of some very, very prominent Christian thinkers who would say that the flood definitely happened, Christianity is definitely real, and that does not mean that we should enforce Christian morality by law. For instance, Thomas Aquinas, who, according to the Catholic Church, is St. Thomas Aquinas, very famously came out strongly both against prostitution as well as making prostitution illegal. He thought that prostitution was one of the more egregious sins that was common in his day, but he was also adamantly against the state enforcing Christian morality more than was absolutely necessary to maintain like a functioning society, right? So like he was like, okay, yes, murder should be illegal, theft should be illegal, that kind of thing should be punished by the state, but like drunkenness, gluttony, premarital sex, prostitution, these should all be things that the state stays out of. That is not enforced by, the violent mechanisms of the state. So I would actually disagree that that is the universal Christian position. Now, it is common among the kind of Christian that Kent is, which is to say that Kent is in the broad Christian nationalist camp. Among those people, yes, they would definitely prefer to enforce Christian morality by law. But I do want to point out that that is not a universal position within Christianity. In fact, until fairly recently, it was a fairly fringe idea that the church should be in charge of secular law and that the morality presented by Christian theologians should carry legal force. Let's see, Jill's husband, Flying Sauropod. Great. Flying Sauropod, for 2 Brazilian reals, said, it's so cool flying and talking crap the size of... Right. It's so cool flying and taking a crap the size of a car. Yes, that would be very cool. Although, I don't think were sauropod craps that big? I don't actually know. Do we have any, like, full sauropod coprolites? Because that would be pretty wild. Oh, I just did something... No, I had done the total wrong earlier, so we'll take a drink for that for Dapper's a professional. All right, here we go.
Somewhere along the line, if he's going to turn from a dinosaur to a bird, his front legs are going to have to turn to wings.
Okay. Hey, Bent. When it comes to the front limbs, and remember those animals I named, like Tyrannosaurus, Ceratosaurus, Archaeopteryx, were any of those animals that had front legs, or did they have arms?
They were wings.
Well, yeah, they were wings. I mean, get your wings in and then chat. But yeah, they
were arms.
Yeah, they were arms. So you're turning an arm into a wing. Dinosaurs basically are bipedal, with their front legs acting as arms, right? The oldest dinosaurs of every single group of dinosaurs, even the ones that are typically seen as 4-legged, were originally 2-legged, like Plateosaurus, one of the earliest members of the sauropod group. It's a prosauropod. Bipedal. Things like Leptoceratops or Protoceratops, bipedal. We have our earliest thyreophoran, like Scutellosaurus, bipedal. Bipedalism is the default in Dinosauria. So, the only way for a dinosaur to need to evolve legs into wings is if it starts out as one of the quadrupedal dinosaurs, which are relatively uncommon, and no one has ever proposed that birds evolved from a quadrupedal group of dinosaurs. Roasted cereal is Soup Keller for $4.99 says, did Henry Morris do a lot of damage or little damage to education? I think overall he did a little damage. I don't honestly think that overall his impact was all that big. And that's in part because the courts in the United States have been pretty good with the separation of church and state up until, well, so far. I'll say that. So far. Obviously, the overturning of Roe v. Wade was probably something that was celebrated by a lot of churches. But the reasoning was not explicitly pro-religious, although it's hard to see how it wasn't ultimately done for religious reasons. So I will say that the United States has had its first major court decision that was probably almost entirely based on religion, even if it wasn't explicitly so. But that was also very recent. So I would say that until very recently, the Supreme Court has been very strong on the First Amendment overall. They have apparently started to significantly go against that. And also, I would argue recently, also just kind of completely abandoned the idea that the Constitution is a document they should be beholden to. Which, yeah, does bring up questions about the legitimacy of the Supreme Court as an instrument of the Constitution. So, do with that what you will.
Which means, at say 50% of the way, he's got a half leg and a half wing.
No, that is not what that means. Let's take a drink for that. That would be a fwing. Get your fwings in chat again. A half arm, half wing. But also, many animals have half leg, half wings, or half arm, half wings. Wallace's flying frog has front legs that are webbed, and it uses them to glide from tree to tree. There are some animals that don't even have limbs, but that can still glide, like flying tree snakes. There are also animals like the colugo, where its front limb is basically like evenly split between wing, leg, and arm. Okay. Great. There's no problem with this. This is not a problem. Many animals today have half a wing. In fact, I have a very old video that is literally called What Good is Half a Wing? Hosted by Dino Attenborough, my weird dinosaur version of David Attenborough. Caden Slinker says, should I debate Kent Hovind? I mean, if you want to. I'm not going to tell you not to. But have a goal in mind. Don't just do it, like, just for fun. Like, have a goal. Like, have something that you want him to have to look bad about. It's one of the reasons I did it, was because I knew that I could make him look bad in front of his own audience. So, yeah, have some kind of realistic goal that you think you can accomplish.
It's not enough to fly yet.
Yep, gliding is a perfectly viable life strategy. Many, many, many animals cannot fly, but can glide. There's flying squirrels, there's sugar gliders, there's, I was going to say flying foxes, but that's just a bat that can actually fly. But there's colugos or flying lemurs, there's flying frogs, flying snakes. Lots of animals have half a wing and get by just fine gliding.
But now he can't run very good either.
Who cares? It's living in the trees. It wasn't going to be running much anyway. One of the things you'll notice about most of these flying animals, as well as many of the dinosaurs that were known to fly, is they seem to have arboreal adaptations, or if they're extant, we know that they just live in trees. You're not running around in the trees anyway. You're scrambling up and down trunks and branches, and you're occasionally leaping from branch to branch. And gliding is a very big help in leaping. And yes, I am generally someone who takes the tree-down approach to dinosaur flight. I think the ground-up approach is less likely, especially since many of the dinosaurs that we see seem to have been arboreal to some degree, like Archaeopteryx.
Very well. Yeah, English teacher, right? So who's gonna feed this critter?
It's going to feed itself. It's going to be just fine.
Can't run and it can't fly.
Incorrect on the run part, because it was already bipedal, so even if it needed to run, it would be just fine. Wasn't running much anyway, because it was in the trees, and it doesn't need to fly. It can glide. Gliding is a thing that animals do. Like, do you think that if Kent were shown a sugar glider, his head would just explode? Because he didn't realize...
Yeah, it might, because he just sounds so stupid when he talks like this.
Yeah, you know what, the whole it can't fly, as if that were a problem, I'm just going to take a drink. It's extremely stupid.
Think the other animals are going to bring him food and feel sorry for him while he's slowly evolving into something else?
No, Kent. I think he's going to catch his own food.
See, in order for evolution to work, all of the intermediate stages have to be superior to the original.
If by that you mean an adaptive advantage, then I would generally agree if we're only talking about adaptive evolution and we're currently disregarding neutral variation, neutral drift. So I will take a drink for that being kind of true, as long as you keep in mind a very specific context.
Nobody's ever demonstrated that. Not one time has that been demonstrated.
I mean, except for all the in-laboratory gain of fitness that we've seen, like in the Lurie-Delbruck experiment way back in the 1940s. The current Lenski long-term evolution experiment showing repeated increase in fitness. We've seen colonization of new areas by currently extant species, which then increased in fitness in those environments. I mean, have we watched in real time the evolution of a new flying lineage? No. For one thing, most of the flying niches are pretty well occupied. And presumably that would take a very long time to do for any lineage that isn't currently flying to become a fully flighted animal, even the ones that are sort of on their way there, like colugos. So I guess in a very technical sense, no, we have not watched in real time as flight developed. But we know that every step along the way is viable. We've seen repeated fitness gains in various organisms in various environments. So I don't see where the barrier is. Let's see. Roasting a cereal is Soup Keller for $9.99 says, when debating Kent, he only wants to call evolution stupid. He cannot and will not defend his side / his alternative, like a global flood or demarcate kinds. Correct. I would say that the best way to debate Kent Hovind is to actually trap him on one of those topics, right? Just continue studiously point out that anything else he brings up outside of the topic of the debate is irrelevant and off topic, and that you will not be engaging on it. Right? Like, so, for instance, in my debate, when he brought up, like, his weird version of, like, the biography of Charles Darwin, in which Charles Darwin, like, wanted to be a priest, but he sucked at it, and also, like, really hated birds or something. Like, all of that's wrong, but I didn't talk about it, because in my next section I said, there was a bunch of stuff about the, biography of Darwin, almost all of it was wrong, but I don't care because it's not relevant to the question. Moving on, right? You have to acknowledge that he said it, because otherwise it sounds like you don't have an answer. But acknowledge it and point out how irrelevant it is, and then move on. Savage Pinnipedisaurus Cobra for $5 says, Kent has shared habitat with the southern flying squirrel for the majority of his life. Is that... I never really thought about that. I actually don't know where the habitat of these flying squirrels are, so... Let me add in the cents there, computer. Trying to tell me I could only add in the dollar amount. I programmed this. I know I can add in that 37 cents. There it is. Like twice. Stupid computer. Anyway, here's... You know what? I'm on a Star Trek ship. I should be just doing this by, like, voice. Like, computer. Computer. Hello, computer.
Thanks.
That it's even possible. Secondly, we never see any animal produce a different kind of animal.
Just take a drink. You can't tell what a kind is, so even if it happened, you wouldn't know how to say that. But further, we've watched multiple species go from being multicellular animals to single-cell parasites. If that's not a new kind, then nothing is. Right? There are single-celled humans, dogs, and Tasmanian devils out there. That's a new kind. I'm sorry. I know that there's resistance to, like, giving HeLa cells their own specific designation. I don't care. They meet every single definition for a new species. They do not have... They do not interbreed with Homo sapiens. They have a distinct lifestyle. They have a distinct morphology. They have distinct habitats. They have a distinct ecology. They're not the same species. They are a new single-celled species of human. Granted, they have a really weird environment, which is laboratories. But they can, even in laboratories, they've been known to spread unexpectedly to new areas that they were never intended to be in and contaminate new samples that weren't supposed to be HeLa cells. So, like, it's not like the only place that they live is exactly where humans put them. Let's say, My Unfinished Journey for 666 says, Hail Nero, speaking of young Earth creationist history, did George McGreedy Price pioneer the plural usage of evidences? So I can't say for certain if that's a thing. However, I do know that the use of the use of the evidence as a count noun is pretty much universal in Christian apologetics. And as far as I know, that's where it comes from in young Earth creationism. Now, I guess it's possible that George McGreedy Price was the first Christian apologist to use the word evidence as a count noun instead of the normal usage where it's a non-count noun. So I can't say no, but I suspect it is not, because it is so widespread in all Christian apologetics, including apologists who are not at all young Earth creationists, or in some cases not even anti-evolutionists at all, right? There are theistic evolutionists who are writing Christian apologetics and Christian theology and whatnot, and they tend to use the word evidences, or just use evidence as a count. So I very much doubt that's where it came from, but I also can't, like, rule it out. Tiri, Clowns Are People, Dr. Tapioca Weasel Rana, who's been a member for 13 months and is at the Tetrapod level, says, Kent is a master of both irrelevant and wrong. Yeah, he's often irrelevantly wrong, which is like what I said with the weird biography of Darwin, right? Like, it's completely irrelevant. It's completely wrong, but there's just no point to it. Like, why are you just wrong for no reason? I don't know.
Nobody ever observes any of this. It's pure fiction. They make it up.
I mean, except for all the observed instances, but yeah, sure.
Here's a textbook from Glencoe, 99 edition, saying, we have evidence from science that dinosaurs turned to birds.
And notice that what they're putting up there are actual fossils. I mean, yeah, there is a drawing there, right? But there's also the actual fossils of the animals. And actually, the weird thing with Archaeopteryx being a bird, or a fake, is that Kent is, as far as I know, the only creationist out there right now who is going with the Archaeopteryx's fake option. Like, Answers in Genesis, they have Archaeopteryx on the Ark. They have a model Archaeopteryx at the Ark encounter. It's encased in a little, like, plexiglass container, and actually, along with many of their animals, it's actually a really cool model. I cannot fault whoever made the models for the Ark encounter. They did an unironically amazing job with those models. They are extremely lifelike, very highly detailed. It's honestly a shame that that much talent was wasted on the Ark encounter. But yeah, they have an excellent model of Archaeopteryx. I only have a few quibbles with it, where like I don't like the feather placement around the head, and we know that it's the wrong color. But at the time that they made it, I don't think we knew it was the wrong color. So like, I'm not going to fault it too much for getting the color wrong before we knew what color Archaeopteryx was. But yeah, like most creationists think Archaeopteryx was a real animal. They just think it was a bird, and they just yeah, it was just a bird. Just ignore all those transitional features. Don't worry about that. Some birds are just like that. Just like, okay, but realize evolution predicted animals like that, whereas you didn't, which means it goes in the evidence for evolution column. So, sorry. But yeah, Kent, for some reason, persists in saying that it was a fake. I don't even know if Carl Baugh agrees with him on this. Maybe Ray Comfort agrees. But then again, Ray Comfort rarely actually takes a stance on anything. He just says a bunch of weird nonsense that only kind of reaches the status of idea.
They're still teaching this stuff.
Yeah, because it's true, Kent.
Dinosaurs did not turn to birds. Alan Fiducia is considered one of the world's experts on birds.
Just drink for Alan Fiducia. It should just be a drink trigger at this point.
Okay. He teaches at University in North Carolina, UNC, Chapel Hill. He said, and I quote, paleontologists have tried to turn Archaeopteryx into an earthbound feathered dinosaur.
Now, I will agree. I don't think Archaeopteryx was earthbound in any significant way. I think it was probably a weak flyer, but it was probably a flyer. And if you're wondering, the difference between gliding and flying is just how fast you can put energy into your glide, right? Because flying is just a prolonged glide, but it's a prolonged glide in which you can put energy into your motion faster than you lose potential energy from gravity, right? So in a glide, you start up here, you start going down, and you're using whatever lift you're getting to reduce this vertical descent rate, right? Which means you're increasing your horizontal distance. And you're losing potential energy as you go. Now, certain things can add to your potential energy, like catching a thermal, or flapping, or something like that. But if you can't do that faster than you lose potential energy, then it's a glide, and you will eventually have to land. But if you can put energy into the glide faster than you lose potential energy from gravity, you can do things like climb, and you can extend the glide far beyond, essentially indefinitely, as long as you don't run out of energy yourself, right? That's the difference between gliding and flying. Can you put energy into the glide faster than gravity takes it away? If yes, you can fly. If no, you can glide. And one of the things that you might notice from that is that it means that it's just a gradient, right? It's just how fast can you put energy in? And you get closer and closer to flight as you add more and more energy per unit time. Which means that flapping does not have to start with actually allowing you to be a flyer. It just means that you can add energy a little bit faster to extend your glide, but you're still gliding at the very beginning. And as you get better and better at flapping, and better aerodynamically, better producing thrust, you can increase the rate at which you can add energy to your glide until it reaches that point where you can actually exceed the energy loss. Granted, only temporarily, but during that temporary time, you are flying. Let's see. Jacks with a hard J, Mir, for $5. Thank you very much. It says, the transitional forms are across the bay in Alameda with the nuclear vessels. I love those nuclear vessels. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we are going to come right back for more Star Trek-themed young Earth creationism debunking, because, look, I don't actually have a good reason why today is Star Trek-themed. I was just like, Bent, we're going to use the Tiki mugs. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. Now I'm in a TOS uniform, and we've got an LCAR set. And I'm also on the bridge of a starship. So, who knows? All right, everybody. We will be right back after this message. Please enjoy it. It is going to be the musical stylings of Beethoven, that guy right there.
Yay.
And yeah, we will be right back after that. Okay, we are back. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for sticking with me, those of you who did. All right, now that we are back, I want to do the quick after the break thing. I do have myself a fresh Mountain Dew Baja Blast, a hard Mountain Dew Baja Blast, as well as a fresh, cocktail umbrella. That's the term. I know words. Yeah, my brain just kind of started to fall apart there for some reason. Oops. Anyway, we are... This channel, right, is almost entirely supported directly through support from my viewers, you guys. if this is something that you enjoy and you have been thinking about supporting financially, we have some great ways to do that. The first one is the Patreon. There's also the channel memberships. Both of them give you access to the Discord server that is just for supporters. It's actually a pretty fun server. I have fun there. I'm there pretty often. At least I'm told that. I don't know. I could be there more often, I guess. I don't know. Whatever. I'm still there pretty much most of the time. One of the best ways to contact me is through that server. There's also early access that you get either way. I have like 4 months of early access videos, maybe 5, I'm not sure, just in the can for people to watch who are supporting me. They will come out eventually to the public, but right now, only way to see them is to join the Patreon or join the channel memberships. You can get better tiers at higher levels, and on Patreon it starts at only $1 a month. It can go all the way to 100. You can get a 15% discount if you pledge annually. At joining the membership starts at $1.99. You can go all the way to $20 if you want to. That has no annual option. It's only monthly, but there you go. The memberships also give you access to membership milestone chats as well as the emojis. So I know some people who give like the larger amount on Patreon, but then they just join like the $1.99 on here on YouTube to get both the amount they want to give me, where I get to keep more of it, but then also the perks there. So that's an option too if you want to do both. If you do both, I do recommend giving the amount, like figuring out how much you actually want to give and giving the bulk of it on Patreon, and then just joining the $1.99 level here on YouTube. So there's that. But if you don't want to do a monthly or an annual thing, that's not your deal. There's also a Amazon wishlist for both me and Bent. Also, Bent has a Patreon linked in the description if you want to toss money his way. We both have wish lists listed in the description. Below this video, you'll find a merch shelf. Feel free to buy some merch. There's blankets, t-shirts, all sorts of stuff. You can see a blanket right there in the background of Bent's room. Yep. It's pretty high quality, too. That thing it's like, what, 3 or 4 years old? It will never fade. Yeah, it's just going strong.
It will not fade. I don't think it's possible to fade. It's printed so well.
Yeah. And, of course, remember, if a financial thing is not in the budget for you, please don't give me any money. No matter what, though. Like this video, share it, watch a few of my videos in a row, comment on my videos. That really helps the channel out. You know, I'm hoping to get to 13,000 here pretty soon. And liking, sharing, commenting, watching multiple videos, all of that helps. That being said, we have a few things to read, and then we are going to get on with the show with Kent Hovind. First, Joshua Geese gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. Thank you so much. Let's take 5 drinks. Here we go. 1. Did that even work? I'm just going to hit 1 plus 2, 3, 4, and 5. Rosna's cereal is Soup Keller for $1.99. Says human objects remain foreign to Dapper Dinosaur. It's true. I mean, like, this whole like mug and like straw with like weird fleshy lips. Not a big fan. DM Google Debunker Wing for $2 says, AIG is a pew full of uninformed church members. That is true, and I know what you're going for. I probably shouldn't count it, but you know what? I'm kind of thirsty, and Mountain Dew Baja Blast is pretty good. Not sponsored, although, hey, Mountain Dew, if you want to sponsor us, we could make Mountain Dew the official drink.
I would love that.
Right. Maybe you could give us, like, a lifetime supply of Baja Blast. Pretty awesome. And even if it's not hard Baja Blast, there's a thing I can do called adding vodka. That just makes it a hard Baja Blast anyway. And then Sean for $10 says, Kent, if a thing has a wing that can't fly, it's useless. So we're just going to pretend that extant dinosaurs that gave the Australian army its eternal badge of shame don't exist, huh? With a Godzilla. So we'll take a drink for the Godzilla. Thank you very much. Oh, there's the straw. All right, I do now need to update this, and there we go. Oh, we're not quite on pace for a special avatar and Bent wearing the pink tutu. But we could get there. We're not far off of pace.
You can do it, chat.
Yeah, we're 44% of the way to making Bent wear a tutu on the 30th or something like that, the last Tuesday of this month.
But it's not. It is a bird, a perching bird, and no amount of paleo babble is going to change that.
Well, first of all, whether or not it's a bird is still a matter of debate and depends on exactly how you want to define what a bird is. But it's absolutely not a perching bird. Alan Fiducia was talking about an alleged inverted hallux. Hallux is just the big toe. And on most theropods that you find in the fossil record, it forms a dew claw that's on the medial side of the foot, right? So, like, you've got these 3 toes here are the main toes on the foot. Then you got a little dew claw hanging out, right? So this is the weight-bearing part. This part mostly does nothing. But in most, well, all birds at this point, this little dew claw faces backwards and is used to, like, perch on things, right? You got this little opposing option. And so it looked like that was the case on Archaeopteryx from some of the fossils, but it turns out that was actually a toponomic artifact. That was because of how it was preserved. The pressure of all the overburden before the animal completely turned, to stone permineralized, it actually forced the toe back so that it looked like it was perching. But we now know that that's just not true. So sure, in 1994, Alan Fiducia had a pretty good argument that that perching foot made Archaeopteryx much more closely aligned with birds than it did with any dinosaur, which he was using as part of his argument that birds aren't dinosaurs. However, we now know that that's just wrong. We got a couple things here. Gil's husband, a flying sauropod for 2 Brazilian reals, says, correction, Barnum is the biggest, and it's of a T-Rex. And then Roshna Cereal is Soup Keller for $1.99 says, AIG me in Klapapa. I think I know what you're going for. I don't know what language that was, so I don't know if I pronounced it right. I assume I didn't. But we'll take a drink anyway. Also, that was Gil's husband, Flying Sauropod's 10th super chat, so thank you very much. And, do you think you're going to wear a tutu next time? We're going to get there?
I think we're going to get there,
all right.
But it has
the word archaeo would be a good quiz
question to make it happen, right?
Yep. Chat does have to make it happen.
And here, archaeo means ancient.
True, take a drink.
And pteryx is a Greek word, or Latin or whatever, for wing.
It's Greek, but okay, I'll take it. It's also true. And yeah, he's going to say it means ancient wing. We're not going to take a separate drink for that.
So Archaeopteryx is ancient wing. If it has the word archaeo in it, it means old or ancient, okay? He says it's a perching bird. See, a bird's foot has a claw sticking out the back. One of his toes comes out the back so he can land and grab a tree branch.
True.
Reptiles don't have that.
Well, except... Okay. This is one of the more annoying things Kent does. And, bits of Paleo Rage also gifted a membership that went to Heather Evolution of Forkscoon. Congratulations. We'll take a drink for that. So, here's the thing, right? If you want to say birds have this thing, but reptiles don't, but the argument that you're trying to make is that birds aren't reptiles, pointing out a thing unique to birds doesn't help, right? Like, if I wanted to say, okay, I don't know, what's a really good... Okay. Humans aren't apes, because humans can stand upright. It's like, well, okay, but first of all, the other apes kind of can, and second, whether or not you can stand upright was never part of the definition of ape in the first place. So, right, if you ask like an actual biologist, hey, what are the defining features of reptilia? A lack of an inverted toe isn't going to be one of them. Because when you're defining a group, you always want to go with the minimal set of characters that they have that no other group has. Which means you never define it in terms of not having this thing unless that thing is very unusual to that group. Now, the inverted big toe is very unusual and unique to birds, which means you can use its presence to define birds if you want to. You could say that I'm going to call this group of animals birds, and it's all going to be all the reptiles that have the inverted toe. Okay, great, sure. That's not normally how we do it with birds, but you can. No one can stop you from using that as your definition. But what you can't then do is say reptiles are the animals that don't have that. Because one of the things you'll notice very quickly is that amphibians don't have that. Mammals don't have that. When you look in the fossil record at stem amniotes or stem tetrapods, right? Like reptiliomorphs and things like that, they don't have that either. Which means it is a special characteristic unique to birds. So the lack of it cannot be used to define a group. Which means that what Kent should say is, if birds are dinosaurs, they're unique among reptiles in having this feature, which is both true, but also, unfortunately for Kent, not a reason birds aren't dinosaurs. We got, for $4.99, asked to Oxford PhD ignorant of Booleans, Ryu, for $4.99, given the new stream theme, AIG is a tribe of trifles. I'll take a drink for that. Yeah. Chris McDaniel says, it's a good thing you get paid to watch this stuff. I'll say, I did watch this before I got paid for it, with Bent often, but not nearly as much or for as long. So, there is that. Also, before, we did a lot more debates, but I don't think his debates work as well as a show. For one thing, we kind of have to sit through a lot of his opponent, about which I have very little to say. So it would also be iffy from just like a copyright standpoint. Because on this show, the vast majority of what you're getting is like me and Bent giving commentary. Kent makes up a fairly small minority. Kent makes up a fairly minor part of the show in terms of length, which helps with the argument that this is fair use, right? Because this is heavily commentary. So, here we go.
So just the toe structure would have to radically change to go from a walking foot to a grasping foot.
But, okay, Kent, the dew claw on a theropod isn't being used for walking in the first place, right? Like, if you look at a T-Rex footprint, you have only 3 toes. What actually, all that needs to happen is that the position that it attaches to, like, the metacarpal... Well, actually, in most birds now, it doesn't even have a separate metatarsal, but whatever. The area where the attachment point to the tarsometatarsus is just kind of has to rotate around a little bit, and now it's in the back. It's really not that big of a problem. And I don't know if you know, but birds can walk just fine, right? Even perching birds, they hop a bit, right? They don't walk exactly like a T-Rex, but like they're not incapable on the ground. There's no great barrier here. The lack of Leon Kennedy for $5 redos says the fact that things like synapomorphies end up being relative is honestly one of the more interesting things about evolution. Yeah. Really, ultimately, to me, when you study the pattern of things like apomorphies and things like that, it is very hard to deny the reality of evolution. Because it's just so obvious they fall into this neat nested hierarchy that is so rarely violated, and even when it is, you can usually figure out that actually you're not really looking at a violation, you're looking at conversion evolution that only superficially looks like it's actually a combination of like apomorphies that shouldn't be. And yeah, it's very hard to understand how that would be squared with a design, because humans do not design things that way unless they're trying to make it look like it wasn't designed in the first place. So, here we go.
Not too many birds do a lot of both, okay? They either nest in trees a lot, or they walk on the ground a lot.
Okay.
But it's difficult for a bird that walks on the ground a lot to be comfortable nesting in trees because the toes are different. They're designed for what they're designed for.
Do you know what the point of that is? I don't get it. I don't know what point he's trying to make there. That told me nothing. Whatever, Kent.
Archaeopteryx means ancient wing. Archaeo's word ancient. They will point out that the Archaeopteryx has claws on his wings.
No, they won't. That's stupid. No one thinks that the claws on the wings are themselves very significant. Let's take a drink and we'll talk about this for a second. Okay. What is significant about the fingers of Archaeopteryx is twofold. One, it has 2 claws. 3 claws. No extant bird has 3 claws. All extant birds have either 1, 2, or 0 claws. If they have 1 claw, it's on the thumb. If they have 2 claws, it's on the thumb and the first digit. The second digit is actually shorter and fused to the first digit, such that it does not actually extend beyond the first digit or diverge from it, which means that the only option for a claw on a digit other than the thumb is on the first digit, digit 2, right? Archaeopteryx has 3 claws. It also has 3 separate fingers. None of the fingers are fused to each other, whereas in actual birds, all 3 fingers are fused. All birds have fused clubby finger hand thingies. Archaeopteryx doesn't. That is why its hands are significant. Not because it just has claws. Many birds have claws on their wings. Ducks have claws on their wings. Geese, swan, ostriches, emus, Watzens. Many birds have claws on their wings. It is not unusual. In fact, if you buy, not from like a restaurant, but if you buy like raw chicken wings from the grocery store that are whole, one of the things you'll find is that they still have their thumbs attached most of the time. And if you are very careful and you grab that little thumb and you poke at it at the tip, you'll find a hard, slightly sharp area. That is a chicken claw on the wing. Restaurants typically snip that off so you don't have to deal with it. But if you get them whole and, uncooked from the grocery store, That claw is still going to be there. You can just go right now to the grocery store and get a chicken thumb claw. It's not hard to do. So, here we go.
Now, let me point out to you, only 6, I believe now, 5 or 6 Archaeopteryx fossils have been found.
I don't know that number. That might be accurate. Savage Pinapenosaurus for $5 says, Kent, the wild turkey, a ground bird that roosts in the trees. How do you know that animals... Oh, sorry. How do you know the animals in... How do you not know the animals in your own backyard? I'm sorry. I can't read, apparently. I've lost that ability. Yeah, that is a good point, is that Kent lives in a place where there are currently mostly ground birds who do have arboreal nesting habits. So yeah, I don't know. There's also the killdeer, which is very much a bird that has an inverted hallux that is just fine in trees, but that also nests on the ground. Although I don't think there's a lot of killdeer in Florida. I feel like it's more of a Great Plains kind of thing.
The first one was found in Germany in, I think, 1859.
I don't know the date. I don't know why it would matter.
Somewhere around that date, okay? What was going on around 1859?
I mean, you remember that time I gave like a 5-minute long list of all the things that happened in a particular year, or in a series of years? I feel like I should do one of those, but I will spare you from the, hour-long recitation of historical events that happened in and around 1859.
Darwin's book. People are looking to criticize the Bible anyway.
Kent, here's the thing. Very few people in academia have it as a goal to criticize the Bible. Most of them are either actual Bible believers or they just don't care. That's most of them. And even most Bible scholars who themselves are atheists aren't there to criticize the Bible, right? They have critical scholarship, but it's not about criticizing the Bible. That's like taking a critical eye and looking at the sources of the Bible, finding out how it was developed, how it was written, whom it was written by, all that stuff, right? With an eye towards data. That's what critical scholarship is. Very few people care about criticizing like the Bible and saying, oh no, Bible bad, therefore evolution. That's really not anyone's motive. I guess I can't say not anyone, but that is not a motive that is common to just academia. Most scientists who aren't Christians just don't think about the Bible. They just don't, because it doesn't matter to their day-to-day lives.
A lot of countries have thrown off the king, anti-monarchy, and the Bible says honor the king, and so they thought the Bible...
Yeah, but judges also seem to imply that kings are a bad idea. It's very easy to get anti-monarchist and pro-monarchist ideas out of the Bible. Because the thing is, the Bible isn't one set of books that has a consistent message throughout about all things. There's some things it's more or less consistent on. But whether or not kings are a good idea, it goes both ways in the Bible. You want to find an anti-monarchist sentiment in the Bible, it's trivially easy. You want to find a pro-monarchist slant in the Bible, also trivially easy.
Was an obstacle. There was a real problem in the world in the early and mid-1800s where evolution came along at the right time where it was readily accepted. They're looking for this theory anyway.
They were looking for a theory of evolution, but it's not because they wanted to criticize them. So we're going to take another drink because that was incredibly stupid, and then we're going to give you a little bit of historical context about it. So also around this time is when paleontology started to actually become a relatively rigorous field, right? People were finding more fossils, they were taking the time to describe the fossils, to examine them closely, comparative anatomy was taking off also. And one of the things that was surprising to a lot of people was that the life in the fossil record was very different from the life that was around at the time, right? Which is roughly the same as the life around now. There were animals that just did not correspond to anything anyone had ever seen that they knew about. And at first people were like, well, maybe they just exist in some remote corner of the world, right? Like some in the middle of the deepest jungle in Africa or Asia or South America or something. Okay, but there were also all of these gigantic sea beasts that if they existed, they would have to come up for air, and no one had ever seen anything like that. So it probably just wasn't the case that these things still existed. So that was when people started to just even accept the idea of extinction in the first place, was as a result of paleontology. But then they also noticed that there did not seem to be the fossils of identifiably modern organisms. There were members of modern groups, like birds or mammals or reptiles, but there didn't seem to be modern species. You couldn't look in the Cretaceous and find a horse, even if you could find a mammal. You couldn't even find a shrew, even if you could find a mammal. And so this idea of faunal succession came about, this idea that the animals in the past are different from the animals in the present, and they probably will be different from the animals in the future. And so there needed to be a framework to explain this. One of the early examples of a framework to explain this was progressive creation. This is what Richard Owen held to, which is that God basically has like different versions of life on Earth, right? And so like, maybe the Cambrian was version, it was like alpha build 0.1, right? And then by the time you get to the Mesozoic, you're now in the beta test phase, and you have life version 4.3 or something. And then finally, way up in the Holocene, God's like, all right, we're out of beta testing, we're out of early access, here's life 1.0. Go have fun, humans. And that was one idea. But there were also numerous evolutionary ideas. Lamarckism was an attempt, right, to explain how maybe animals themselves changed over that time. Some went extinct, some evolved into new forms, some split off. The significance of Darwin was not that he came up with an explanation for this faunal succession and the relatedness of modern organisms, it's that he was the first one to have an empirically testable, verifiable, and falsifiable idea that was not subsequently falsified. That's why he's significant. So, and one of the things I want you to notice is, hey Ben, how many times did I bring up the Bible when discussing faunal succession and why it needed to be addressed?
Repeat the question, please.
Did I bring up the Bible at all when talking about faunal succession and how it was discovered and why it needed to be? Yeah, because it wasn't an issue. No one was talking about that in terms of the academy. Granted, the progressive creationists, granted, the progressive creationists liked that their idea comported with lots of traditional theological ideas, but the people who were pro and anti-evolution were not split between Christians and non-Christians, just like they're not today. For $4.99, Asta Canis Lupus Familiaris Chihuahuensis Ryu says, it's almost like you can take almost any message out of the Bible with enough quote mining. Yeah, actually, if you're willing to quote mine the Bible, as well as also just pretend that all of it agrees with all of the rest of it, you can get any message you want. But you can find it in there. It's pretty easy. I mean, that's also true for basically any very large text, right? Any text the size of the Bible is going to have all sorts of stuff that you can pick out and say all sorts of things with. Especially if that text has more than one author.
Also, evolution teaches, we'll get into more of this later, that different races might be superior to other races.
Take a drink, jeez. It was
it does not teach that.
It doesn't. It was evolutionary biologists, in fact, who demonstrated conclusively that biological races are not a thing that exists in Homo sapiens. Right? Like, from an objective biological standpoint, there just aren't human races. They don't exist. Races are a social construct, which means that they exist in the same way that, like, English exists, as in it's an agreement that we have across, between people about how to use a particular set of categories. In the case of English, it's words and grammar and whatnot. And in the case of race, it's various phenotypic traits that are used to categorize people. But those categories that we lump people into as a social construct don't actually correspond to real categories in biology. That's not to say that there aren't regional variations in humans. They are, but they do not form distinct clusters that are separate from other clusters, which would be what would be required for them to be distinct racial categories biologically. Further, evolution on its own doesn't say that things are superior or inferior across the board somehow. Organisms are better or less adapted to their current environment, but even so, that doesn't make them better or worse, right? Evolution doesn't say that fruit flies are better or worse than mule deer, right? There's no way to compare these and say, well, mule deer are clearly better because, they live longer? I guess that's true. They're bigger? Yeah, but who cares? Evolution isn't here for longevity or size unless that helps in the environment. There's literally nothing about evolution that makes value judgment on organisms. So evolution can't say that some groups of humans are better than others. However, people have hijacked evolution to say that, but also people have hijacked the Bible to say that, which is especially weird given that in the context of the Bible, the idea of racial categories isn't even a thing. Do you know how much the Bible has to say about race? It's literally zero, because none of the authors of the Bible had even heard of the modern concept of race. Because that concept wasn't invented until Christians needed a good excuse to enslave Africans en masse. That's when the idea of race was invented. It was invented to excuse a theological problem within Christianity. And then later on, scientists who were motivated in order to keep that excuse going used bad science to perpetuate that idea, including evolutionary biology. But also, we should point out that the Bible is an explicitly pro-slavery book, which was used heavily by pro-slavery Christians in order to excuse their enslavement of people. If anything, the Bible was a much bigger factor in terms of race-based slavery than evolution was, because it was the origin and the original support for this idea. Now, that does not mean that the Bible is a racist book, because again, not even a category in the Bible. But there you go. For $1.99, Roshana Cerealist Soup Keller says, English isn't real, it can't hurt me. Well, unfortunately, it is real, and it can hurt you depending on whether or not it's like your first language. If it's your first language, it's probably not going to hurt you. But it is a gigantic pain to learn as a second language, and I'm glad I don't have to do that, because holy crap, English kind of sucks.
1859, we had slavery in this country.
Okay,
Civil War wasn't fought till a couple years later.
Kent, the people who were most adamantly arguing for slavery were 1, slave owners, and 2, pastors and priests. Right? Like, sure, they would use scientific publications if it helped, but they were primarily arguing from the Bible, which is full of rules regulating slavery, as well as historical instances in which God is alleged to have ordered the taking of slaves. Right? And as well as even the New Testament has a whole lot of things about how to treat slaves. The almighty creature in the sky for 500 Argentinian pesos. Thank you so much. Says, sorry, Dapper, but according to evolution, Black Bear is best. Fact. Black Bear eats beats. Bears beats Battlestar Galactica. You know what? I cannot really disagree with this. These are accurate statements. And so, as a result, I have to say, yes, evolution, with one exception, does in fact say that they are the best. So, Black Bears are the best. Just don't tell Lando Calrissian.
Emancipation Proclamation wasn't until 1863. So when Darwin came out and said there are favored races, some people said, well, hey, obviously that's the whites.
We're going to take another drink. Okay. Bent, I don't know if you know this, but I have searched through the entirety of every edition of The Origin of Species, looking for instances of the word race, to see what it's talking about. There are 6 editions of The Origin of Species. Would you care to guess how many times the word race is applied to humans over the entire course of all 6 versions of The Origin of Species? I will tell you this, it is a whole number.
Not many. Not many. 0.
It is 0. It is literally 0. Not one time does the text of The Origin of Species ever talk about human races. It talks about races of horse. It talks about races of cabbage. It talks about races of pigeon. Never once does it mention humans. Now, in the later book, The Descent of Man, Darwin starts to get into human races, but he actually, even there, doesn't really give a rigorous idea about how human races exist or came about, other than that perhaps through things like natural and sexual selection. Also, for $4.99, Astacanus lupus familiaris chihuahuensis Ryu says, you know your language is horrible when you have to go to a language with 4 concurrent writing systems, Japanese, to find something more cursed. Yeah. Japanese might be more, it's probably more cursed than English, but it's hard to find one that's more cursed than Japanese.
Over the blacks. Hitler comes along and says, no, obviously that's the Norwegians and the Germans, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed, they were the superior race.
Hey, take a drink. He mentioned the party.
And a lot of people use this theory to justify what was already happening or what they're already doing anyway.
Yeah, lots of people use current science to justify whatever the heck they want. Right? The fact that humans have misused various principles in science in order to do bad things isn't an argument that those things are bad. Right? Even if that being true, even if we were to say that evolution being true directly leads to fascism and genocide, that wouldn't actually make evolution false. That's an argument from consequence. It's fallacious. If evolution being accepted has bad results, that says nothing about whether or not evolution is true. Not even a single thing. Think about it this way. how bad would it be if your house were on fire? Probably pretty bad, right? Does that mean that your house isn't on fire? No. No, it doesn't. If your house is on fire, the fact that it would be better if it weren't is not a good reason not to call the fire department. But that's what Kent is doing. Kent. Wait a point.
And then along came guys who said, well, hey, if evolution is true, then there are no moral rules.
That's just a non sequitur. Take a drink. Get back in there, Umbrella. What the heck? Umbrella sucks today. I mean, to be fair, it wasn't designed for this particular output, but whatever. Okay. For 279 Beaver Bucks, Olivia Williams says, I find English is much easier than French. Look, I only have experience learning French as a second language and not English, so I guess I can't say for certain. But, just based on things like orthography and grammar, I don't know that I can say that's definitely true. But then again, if that's been your experience, then hey, that's your experience. I can't say it's wrong.
There are no standards.
Yeah, sorry. Evolution, meaning that there's no moral rules or standards, is just as silly as saying if gravity is true, there are no moral rules or standards. It just doesn't follow. Moral philosophy and the theory of evolution do not intersect very much at all. The only ways in which they intersect is that maybe you could inform certain aspects of your moral philosophy, depending on what it is, based on things about evolution, like, I don't know, like grade 8 personhood or something, right? Maybe that's something that evolution could inform you on. But that evolution is true or not has no bearing on whether or not morality can be objective or subjective, or absolute, relative, whether divine command theory is true, or whether you should be a deontologist, whether you should be a consequentialist, or whether you should be a moral non-realist. Any of these things could be compatible with the theory of evolution.
By the way, it is a good, fair question. If evolution is true, how do you tell right from wrong?
Any of the ways that anyone else does. And it could, again, it could be divine command theory. It could be deontology. It could be consequentialism.
I would just do the same thing I used to do, which is not have it based on evolution at all.
Yeah. For $4.99, Roshina Cereal is Soup Keller says, evolution says eating a McFlurry next to a capybara is sinful. Does it say that? What if you shared with the capybara? You give the capybara some of your McFlurry, then it probably isn't sinful. Because, I don't know, I assume capybaras like I feel like most animals would like a McFlurry. But then again, I haven't actually tested it. But most animals like sugar, so... And fat. And that's most of what's in a McFlurry.
Yeah, you don't ask the question, what's right and what's wrong. You ask, first of all, how do you tell what's right and wrong?
Evolution has no bearing on this. Evolution does not negate the ability for the option for there to be a creator god, Kent. Because you know that's what Kent's worried about, right? Kent is big on divine command theory, and he thinks that if evolution is true, then there is no god who can give divine commands. But that just doesn't follow. There could be a real god who gives commands, and evolution is true.
How do you make this decision? That's a critical issue you got to talk about. Now, there are quite a few birds today that have claws on their wings, at least 12.
Oh yeah, I forgot we were talking about clawed bird wings. Also, there's a lot more than 12, but technically, he's right in saying at least 12, so I guess we take a drink for it. It's like saying there are at least 12 people out there. It's like, technically true. At least 12 people do exist.
Birds right now have claws on their wings. This fellow says, Stahl adds that some ornithologists call the Watzen.
Watzen.
A Watzen is
Watzen.
A bird that lives in South America. They call it the stink bird because it smells so bad. I guess that's how it repels predators. Okay.
I actually don't know if that's the case. I believe, although I can't currently find a source for that just off the top of my head, but I believe that the more likely reason for its bad smell is that almost uniquely among birds, it is actually a fermentation, it has a fermentation digestive system for its mostly folivorous diet. So almost all of it, what it eats is leaves, which is pretty much unique among birds. There are no other birds that I'm aware of that get most of their diet from leaves. And as a result, they have to use a really big crop which is the first part of the digestive system after the esophagus in a bird. It's usually somewhere around like the base of the neck, and they let plants ferment in there, and then they pass it to the stomach where it's digested. And I believe it's the fermentation process that actually makes them smell bad, but I could be wrong about that.
Just who'd want to eat it? You get close. I'm hungry, but no thanks.
And as a result, as far as I know, people don't generally eat Watzines. I guess there you go.
The Watzen does not fly
Watzine.
Long distances. Okay, it's a poor flyer, but it can fly just fine.
True.
It's a poor flyer because it has a shallow breastbone. See, birds when they fly.
Okay, so we're going to take a drink because this is kind of true, but also kind of stupid. It's actually not so much that the Watzine has a shallow breastbone, or keel, is what he's talking about, but it's the keel is not optimally placed for flight. It's very low on the bird. And the reason for this is that up towards the anterior end of the keel bone, of the sternum, right? It's actually flatter in order to make room for the enlarged crop, which is where the fermentation happens. Now, down further posterior, the keel then extends out from the bird and is actually fairly deep. But because it's not in an ideal angle, the downstroke is not quite as good. So it's not that it doesn't have a deep keel. It actually has a fairly deep keel. It's just not great in a very good position for strong flight. So yeah, the Watzine is not a strong flyer, but it's only kind of true that it has a shallow keel. It's like, kind of. You can find Watzine skeletons and you can see that they have a decently sized keel. It's just in a weird spot. So Watzines, in other words, are just really weird birds overall. They're just completely bizarre.
The chest muscles have to be enormous, to be able to flap the wings. So the bone that these muscles attach to has to be very deep to allow for all that. Like you have a breastbone in the center of your chest, but it's not real thick, sticking way out, because you don't use those muscles as much as a bird would, obviously. So,
speak for yourself, Ken. I'm always using my arms for flapping motions. That's not true.
Archaeopteryx has what's called a shallow breastbone. It's not real deep.
Archaeopteryx does not have a keeled sternum at all. Like at all. This is a big difference between the Watzine and Archaeopteryx. Also, I want to point out, Cross-Platform Adventure says, yes, that's what Bizarre Beast said. I didn't know that. That's cool. I don't think I've seen the Bizarre Beasts episode on the Watzine. I need to check that out, because I like Bizarre Beasts. Send me that link. Send me the link to the Bizarre Beasts episode on the Watzine. I get this mostly because I read about the Watzine, because guess what? People like Kent like to bring up the Watzine, so I have to make it something I know about. Yeah, but also, you think he's going to talk about the fact that Archaeopteryx had no beak and had teeth, and no current bird has those?
No, he won't.
Okay.
Well, the reason for that is because it has a crop where it eats leaves, actually.
Wow.
These leaves.
I'm honestly impressed that Kent knows that. Most people don't know that. I would not expect Kent to have known that. Yeah, let's take a drink. That is actually impressive. You know what, Kent? Well done. Hey, credit's where it's due, man. Most people don't know that much about the Watzine. Yeah, I am legitimately impressed that Kent knows that much about the Watzine.
Leaves have to be ground up. It doesn't have any chewing teeth, so it eats.
Weird, because Archaeopteryx has teeth, Kent.
These leaves, and the crop has to chew them up by they swallow rocks. Birds even today pick up rocks, so they.
Hey, that's true too. Gastroliths are a big thing in the Watzine. Yeah, but also we have a lot of dinosaur gastroliths, Kent, from dinosaur crops, because dinosaurs had crops, or still do have crops, because birds, and me, obviously. This is my human suit. I'm actually a dinosaur. This is just a costume. This is a costume on top of a costume.
Fine.
Wait, no, I'm actually in Starfleet? No, that's not going to fly.
Their food up. So because Archaeopteryx, because of its diet, has a large crop, therefore it has a shallow breastbone.
Again, it's more that the breastbone is it's weirdly positioned, but.
And so some people look at I'm not Archaeopteryx, I mean Watzen, okay?
Watzine.
They look at the Watzen and say, wow,
Watzine.
Oh, this is, a missing link. First place, it's not missing. It's still alive, okay? You can go down to South America and get them.
That's why I don't like the word missing link. I prefer transitional form, because missing link implies that we don't have it, but we have lots of transitional form.
But It is a poor flyer, but when it's born, when it hatches out of the egg, it has claws on its wings.
Yeah.
And it uses these little claws to climb up trees.
Yeah.
Can't fly yet, but it climbs around with these little claws on the wings. The swan has claws on its wings. The ibis does, and many birds, he says, have wing claws. They just never make use of them.
I disagree that they never make use of them. Some waterfowl have been known to make wing strikes that use the claws as weapons. So, yeah.
Archaeopteryx had teeth in its beak.
Oh, that's interesting. It also just didn't have a beak, Kent. There was no beak, but it did have teeth. Roshina, Cerealist Soup Color for $1.99 says, Dapper Dinosaur loves eating rocks. I don't, because gastroliths are pretty typical of herbivorous dinosaurs. Because plant matter is hard to digest and needs to be ground up better. And many dinosaurs did not have teeth that were made for chewing. Now, some did, right? Ceratopsians famously had dental batteries that were exceptionally well adapted for chewing. Not in a side-to-side way, as most mammals do, but actually they went back and forth. They have a really weird jaw attachment system that's pretty unique, and it allowed their jaws to slide back and forth to grind. And so they didn't need gastroliths. But a lot of sauropods certainly needed gastroliths. And some herbivorous theropods did too, like avamimids and therizinosaurs, I can talk, also needed gastroliths because they generally could not chew. In fact, they generally didn't really have much in the way of teeth overall. And they did have beaks, unlike Archaeopteryx.
Well, I point out, only 2 known birds have teeth in their beak. Archaeopteryx and what's called the Hesperornis.
Okay. Here's the thing. If you want to call Archaeopteryx a bird, then hundreds of birds that we know of had teeth, but no extant birds do. But I wouldn't like to call Archaeopteryx a bird because I like to be restrictive with the word bird. So in that case, then I would say, well, I don't think there are any birds with teeth. But all that is just where do you draw the line around bird? And if it includes Archaeopteryx, then lots of birds in the past had teeth. If you don't want to include Archaeopteryx, which I prefer not to, but I understand that I'm in the minority there, then I would argue that no birds had teeth because I don't like to use the word bird in anything other than crown aves. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe when this was made, I know that when this was made, we didn't have nearly as many fossil like talons, which is what bird often turns into in popular press. But if you want to say aviale, yeah, there are hundreds of species had teeth. Savage Pinnipetasaurus for $5 says, you mean that Ceratosaurus didn't eat watermelons off trees? Actually, nothing has ever eaten watermelons off trees because, fun fact, watermelons don't grow on trees. But also, no, Ceratosaurus does not eat watermelons off of trees. I can't say that this Ceratosaurus has never eaten a watermelon at all, but it's certainly not a staple part of my diet.
Most birds do not have teeth. But
all modern birds lack teeth. Okay.
Some fish have teeth. Some don't. Some reptiles have teeth. Some don't. Some mammals have teeth. Some don't. Some of you have teeth. Some don't. Okay?
Okay, but Kent, if you wanted to explain the existence of a toothless group of animals in terms of common ancestry, you would expect their ancestors to have teeth. Like, here's a cool thing. Platypus do not have teeth. But did you know that we have found fossil platypus teeth? Because their ancestors had teeth. And why is this a confirmation of evolution? Because teeth are basal to mammals. Mammals, by default, have teeth. They evolved to lack teeth. And despite this cartoon, the lack of teeth in mammals like aardvarks or platypus is not a result of age. It is a result of evolution. They lost their teeth as a species, not because they got old, right? And so, if you look out and you say, hey, look, no birds have teeth today. But interestingly enough, all birds actually have tooth genes, which you can switch on in an embryo, and they develop little stubby no enamel teeth. That's weird. That's kind of suspicious. Why would they have teeth genes if they were designed to not have teeth? And then you see Archaeopteryx, which has teeth in an otherwise very bird-like body in most respects. You say, okay, well, here's an example of something that fits what we would predict as an ancestral transitional bird-type animal that has... Oh, take a drink for Godzilla. It has a combination of basal, more typical dinosaurian traits, as well as more advanced, more typically avian traits. That's exactly what a transitional species is, right? It has some of the synapomorphies of the later group, meaning aves, while retaining some of the more primitive basal traits of the wider group Dinosauria that are lost in the more advanced, or well, more derived group aves, right? Like teeth. And also, interestingly, the teeth of all birds with teeth are specifically dinosaur teeth. You can tell. They have sockets, unlike lizard teeth. They are often serrated, like theropod teeth.
It doesn't prove anything. And obviously, a kindergartner ought to be able to figure it out. If you're going from used to have teeth to don't have teeth, that's not getting better.
It is if the loss of teeth helps you out. Teeth are metabolically expensive and they're heavy. Maybe it's a better idea for birds not to have them. Many lineages of organisms have lost teeth over time as a result of differences in their diet or lifestyle. There's no rule that says that teeth are better than non-teeth. It is dependent on the environment. All evolutionary adaptation is dependent on the environment. There is no objective overall better or worse. There is the environment and how well you can reproduce in that environment. If you can reproduce better without teeth, then no teeth is better. If teeth help you reproduce and no teeth make it you worse at reproduction, then teeth are better. There is no objective standard in evolution for better or worse because scientific theories do not have values attached to them. It's like saying that higher gravity is better than lower gravity. Like Jupiter is better than Earth. What would that even mean? Certainly not better for me. I don't want to go live on Jupiter. But it's got more gravity. Isn't that better? No, it's just a fact. That's just what it is. Oh wait, that was a joke that didn't land? It was a joke that didn't land. I was so much didn't land, I didn't even notice it was a joke. Thank you, DM Google Debunker Wing. We'll take a drink for that. Okay.
But that's an example for evolution. They'll say this bird lost its teeth. How is losing something evolution?
Because evolution is a change in allele frequencies in a reproductive population over time. If the loss or presence of teeth is something that is genetically determined, such that it can be heritable, then going from one state to the other over the course of successive generations is evolution. Nothing about evolution says you always have to gain new anatomical structures. Losing structures is just as much evolution as gaining.
That's backwards.
Nope, there is no backwards in evolution. Even if you go to a state which is at least superficially more basal than your previous state, it's still not backwards.
Compared to what you need. This one says, this textbook, Hope Biology 94, says, the descendants are the birds, which evolved about 150 million years ago. Bird feathers evolved from the same scales that protected the dinosaurs so well.
Look, the exact relationship between, say, like, the scales of lepidosaurs, like snakes and snakes aren't lizards, but lizards, the tuatara, and feathers is contentious. It is definitely the case that feathers and scales, share a common ancestor in terms of anatomy that itself evolved from a thickening on the skin, whose technical name I don't actually remember off the top of my head. But it's... I would not be someone who would say that they evolved directly from scales in the sense of modern reptile scales. Let's see. We have a couple super chats. Roshan Cerealist Soup Keller for $4.99 says, Ken still mistakenly believes evolution only means getting better in all things, and Jovians are superior to Earthicans anyway. I disagree. I think Earthicans have the high ground on that. For one thing, it's easier to get into orbit from Earth than Jupiter. Strawberry, 5th super chat vein, with another one of their 5th super chats, says, quote, fitness means whatever I think is cool, right? I mean, apparently if you're Sal Cordova or John Sanford, then yes. But if you're, anyone who has the first bit of knowledge about evolution and who doesn't want to who doesn't want to strawman it, then no, that's not what fitness. Vagrant Vagabond of Varian Vistas, who's been a member for 13 months and is at the amnial level, says, Well, I'm late, and I see I got a gift, and I don't know who. So thanks to them, AIG is a fragrant faculty of fallacious, foolhardy fixtures with a Mothra. We will take a drink. Thank you very much. You know, at some point, I'm going to actually put in a Tiki drink. It'd be like a Mai Tai. Actually sounds really good.
Imagine yourself, high school student. Teacher says, for homework tonight, read the following 8 pages and answer the questions at the end of the chapter. You remember in high school, you're going to read those 8 pages reluctantly and answer the questions.
Yup, that's how school works. I mean,
as quick as you can. And one of the questions is going to be, what did feathers evolve from?
I doubt it, but maybe.
You're going to say scales, because that's what they told you in the book. It is so unfair to send students off to war. I mean, if the enemy...
What? Does he mean that literally?
I don't think so, but I'm not sure where he's going with this.
Okay.
If an enemy country attacked the United States,
Okay.
would we send all the 5th graders off to fight them?
No. Probably not.
No, you guys are in the Marines. You get the biggest and the brightest and the best. Well, not Marines, the brightest, but you get the biggest and the...
Oh, that was a joke that didn't land. Marines are dumb.
strongest you...
Although I will say, having served with Marines, they generally were not the brightest overall, on average.
I'm sorry, Steve. And you send them off. You want to get the best you got out there. And you give them the best weapons available. And
I really don't understand how this connects to, like, little Timmy doing homework about bird evolution. I really want to know how this is supposed to connect to that.
you pay them the most money of anybody gets paid in the country.
Kent, if you think that Marines are getting the most money out of anyone in the country, I have some news for you, because I've been paid military wages. Or, I guess, salary, technically. It's not that good. It's not terrible, right? Like, I could afford to live and have a few nice things here and there. But, you're not getting rich by going off and fighting in a war in the Marines. That's not how that works.
Is that right? Well, not quite, but almost. Right?
Okay, it was a joke that didn't land.
You don't send fifth graders off to battle. We have a real serious problem with lies in our textbooks, and we're sending the kids off to have to fight against this.
No, they don't have to fight against this. First of all, they're not lies. They're just things that you don't believe, right? They're actually true. But you can just tell your kid, hey, just answer the question the way your teacher wants. That's all they have. That's all you have to do. Roshina Cereal is Soup Keller for $1.99 says 10 to 11-year-olds fighting wars? I mean, not in the United States military, but child soldiers are a thing, just, not in the United States military. All right, we're going to get a little bit more Kent in, then we're going to wrap things up here.
The adults ought to be fixing this one. It's very simple. This is not true.
Yes, it is.
So you go to your school board, your county, whoever's selecting your textbooks, and say, look, information on page 214 is wrong. Let's cut that page out of the book.
Okay. And then what your school board should respond to is, what evidence do you have that this is wrong? You will present them with basically Kent Hovind. And they will say, that is insufficient. In fact, this is wrong based on the testimony of every expert, numerous papers, and the general consensus of the field of paleontology. Therefore, it's going to stay in. Here's the thing. The battle over what goes into textbooks is not properly fought at the level of a bunch of parents complaining to their school board. It is based on what's in the actual literature in the field. If you want to change what should go in textbooks, you first have to change what the status of the field is. If you want to say that Archaeopteryx is not a transitional form between more basal theropods and birds, you have to get that to become the consensus in paleontology. Until then, it's just not going to happen. Textbooks are downstream of peer-reviewed literature. If you want to change the textbooks, you have to start with the peer-reviewed literature. There are no other options. Currently, the consensus view in paleontology is that Archaeopteryx is very much transitional, Birds are very much dinosaurs, and evolution is very much true. Good luck if you want to change that, but you have to change it in the literature. Science textbooks are written by scientists who themselves are at least somewhat acquainted with various fields and their literature. You're not going to get them changed by whining to a bunch of elected officials who don't really care except to make you go away, and then they're probably going to ignore you anyway, especially if what you're suggesting is unconstitutional as judged by many cases, some of which made it to the Supreme Court. But that, I think, is where we're going to leave it today. Bent, do you have anything you want to say before we get out of here?
Oh yeah, I want to say thank you to Anonymous who gifted me items from my Amazon wish list. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it is always a lot of fun when either of us get something from the Amazon wish list, right? It's an instant mood boost. In fact, actually, look here. I know we're doing Star Trek today, right? So this is probably off theme, but check this out. Ah!
Oh no.
Space Hugger. I really appreciate this. That was from my wish list. Actually, it was on my wish list for like 3.5 years or something. And then finally it showed up and I was like, yes. Very exciting. All right. What's coming up on the channel? Let's take a look. So tomorrow is Wednesday, and over on Top Hats Off, the plan is for the Power Rangers Jungle Beasts to have another session. That is our Power Rangers tabletop RPG actual play series that we do on my other channel, Top Hats Off. We play on Wednesdays. We're going to weekly as much as we can. We only have, I think, like 6 more sessions left until the campaign is over, so we're nearing the end there. That is with me, it's with Bent, it's with Maddie. There's a few names you'd recognize in the group. Thierry Rana is there, he's in chat right now. Tremo, who's been a member for 9 months and is at the annual level, says, then there's the necessity of keeping crayons around for the Jarheads too. AIG equals Saki Mentulus. Thank you very much, we'll take a drink for that. And then, let's see. The almighty Creature in the Sky with another 500 Argentinian peso says, I didn't say this before because I got here late, but Bent, I'm so happy to see you back and so happy to see you're feeling much better. Yes. Let's take a moment to welcome...
Glad to be feeling better.
Yeah. Those of you who don't know, we didn't do a count with Ben last week because Ben was in the hospital. He is obviously out now, unless you think that's what hospitals look like. Which, spoiler, that is not what hospitals look like. Strawberry's 5th Super Chat vein with yet another 5th Super Chat for $20 says, I'm trying to get my sister, molecular biologist, to watch Young Earth Creationist debunking with me, and when I describe things like genetic entropy, she said, but making stuff up isn't science? And I couldn't stop laughing. Yeah, I don't blame either you or her. Hey, Degrade, no true Dino Man for $2 says, Kent can go eat a bag of AIGs. We'll take a drink for that. And Mark Rose for $1.99 says, live long and prosper. Peace and long life, Mark Rose. Alright, so let's see. On Thursday, the final episode of the Pam Acker Catholic Young Earth Creationist is going to be coming out. That is, let's see, let me get the, what is fitness? Which is actually one of the things we were just talking about today. Pam Acker has the same idea about fitness as like John Sanford or Sal Cordova, that it's like the thing you go to the gym to get. And while that is a use of the word fitness, it is not the use that evolutionary biologists are using when they say fitness in the context of evolutionary biology. So, yeah, you can watch her get all that wrong. Let's see. Then on Friday, there is nothing planned on this channel. Then on Saturday, though, there will be a Dapper Reacts, and currently the plan is to take a look at a broadcast from a First Nations station over in Saskatchewan that was uploaded to their YouTube channel, in which a Young Earth Creationist shows up to basically just lie on this Cree YouTube channel / TV station for some reason. It does feel a little bit like punching down. It's a fairly small station with a fairly small YouTube. But on the other hand, I also feel like the Cree Nation doesn't deserve to have like random-ass guys come on and lie to them about biology. And so I'm going to take a look at it anyway. That being said, though, I do not want to say that I am just like opposed to this channel overall. They actually have some very valuable stuff, including some stuff that goes towards language preservation for the Cree language. So overall, my impression of this channel and their TV station is not bad. This is just an exception to the general content that I found on there. Now, a lot of it is very Christian themed, but that's okay. I don't have a problem with that. In fact, a lot of the language preservation is being done specifically because they're translating various things like Christian hymns into Cree. And I think that the exercise of creating translations in Cree is a good exercise for the preservation of the language. DM Google Debunker Wing for $2 says infinite diversity in infinite combinations, which is in fact like the motto of the Vulcan species. And I'm a big fan of the idea of infinite diversity in infinite combinations. I mean, obviously, literally, it's pretty hard to accomplish because infinity is one of those things that's hard to get in the real world. But overall, yes, I do like the idea of many combinations. And also, of course, that was followed up with some pride emojis for that reason, because infinite diversity. Okay. I think... Oh, then next Tuesday, it should be Jackson... Oh, wait, sorry, Matt with Maddie on Tuesday. So, look forward to that. I don't have a title for that, but there it is. I want to say thank you again so much to everyone who's here, everyone who's watching, everyone who's super chatted, everyone who got memberships or gifted memberships. You guys are the reason that we can stay on the air, and I can't thank you enough. You guys have turned what was once just a weird pipe dream into a thing that I can do as just what I do. So thank you again. Bent, I think I speak for everyone when I'm saying welcome back.
Thank you.
And I hope that you stay in good health.
Yeah, me too.
So, with that, everybody, if you are interested, we're going to be watching the last 2 episodes of Power Rangers SBD over on the Discord, followed up by the first 2 episodes, Power Rangers Mystic Force. That will be in a few minutes. Like, I'm going to take this off and grab a snack or something. But yeah, in just a few minutes, we'll be doing that. And if that doesn't interest you, hey, that's fine. Don't show up for that. I hope to see all of you on at least Thursday, if not on Wednesday. And have a great rest of your week. And, of course, right in under the wire, Tremo for $5 says, but how big in an infinity? Aleph -1? You know what? You'd have to ask the Vulcans. I don't actually know. But I will update the counter before we get out of here to say 71%. Here we go. We did not quite make Vent wear a tutu.
Maybe next time.
Maybe. All right, bye, everybody.
Bye.
Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially Weasel, Tapioca Weasel, Elaround Teller, Horseflesh, Ian Chen, Kelvin Brostick Van Manen, Landon Knoll, Mabdy Babbity, Sphincter of Doom, and Ballus. It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 10% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos, often 3 to 5 months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.